Welcome to another episode of The Simpsons Did It. I'm your host, Steven Sklansky.
And I'm your co-host, Robert Sklansky. We did it.
We completed season 2.
We did it.
And you know how we're going to celebrate?
By giving the blood of the innocent. I mean, of ourselves.
Well, I mean, Bart was kind of innocent.
It's Bart. He's never innocent.
Right. So let's go donate some blood to a good cause. And I don't know how Mr. Burns would be considered a good cause. But Smithers seemed to think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we bring you the final episode of season 2, episode 22, Blood Feud, which, honestly, it's kind of a weird name for this episode. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
No one was fighting over blood. I mean,
no.
I could see
they were fighting for blood.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it a blood feud is like when two, the same family is fighting each other. That's what I think of like a blood feud.
Yeah. Or I mean,
if you took something from me and we were feuding over it, that's a blood feud.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know. It's kind of an odd name for a title.
Yeah. So this originally aired on July 11th, 1991. And that is because production fell behind schedule, and so they had to push it back. And Fox advertised it as part of Premiere Week. And nobody fell for it. It did not do that great in the ratings.
Yeah. As I've heard on other Simpsons podcasts from creators of The Simpsons, production on these episodes is crazy and can take a lot of time.
It's not like South Park where they freaking do it at nowadays they do it like the day before the episode airs,
which is still crazy to have an episode written and animated. And
well, I wonder if they write it a few days prior and then do because I mean it's just Matt Stone and Trey Parker doing the voices.
Yeah, and a few
for the
other
most part.
Yeah, and then a few other people.
But their animation process, I think, is a little less complicated than The Simpsons.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that. But still, to put together an episode, edit it, direct it, just seems crazy in that amount of time span.
And I mean, I guess The Simpsons have a lot of voice actors nowadays. So, trying to get everybody together and to do it, it takes a couple months, I'm sure. So to recap this episode, Bart's blood saves Mr. Burns and Homer sends his boss a nasty letter. I mean, it's kind of a rotten thing to do. Your son saved your boss's life. You shouldn't be writing nasty letters.
No, but we'll learn why he sent the letter.
Chalkboard gag. This is a pretty fairly straightforward one. I will not sleep through my education. Clearly, Bart
guilty.
Fell asleep in class.
Guilty. I would definitely say that. Is that a detentionable offense? Maybe for Bart it is, but
maybe for Bart. Well, I only really fell asleep in my morning classes because, especially in high school. I mean, in college, I'd fall asleep in my 8 a.m. class, but that was only because we were watching a movie or something. Or I would just skip because, well, it's funny. So, funny story about falling asleep in school. In college, my professor it was a history class. He's like, stop falling asleep in my class. And if you're going to do that, just don't show up.
Yep.
And I'm like, all right.
Fine. I won't show up. I'll just sleep in. Thanks.
And the cherry on top of that, for my final, he came up to me during the final and asked me about the hat I was wearing because it was a Mariners hat. And I'm like, you yelled at me for not disturbing the class, yet you're going to come up to me during a final and disturb me during the final. Thanks. Yep. That makes you a great professor. But yeah, Bart shouldn't be falling asleep in class. Kids, don't fall asleep in class. Or else you might miss out on something important.
Yeah, and you'll know.
What a rhombus is. Or a zebu. You might not know what a zebu is, as we'll learn about in a little bit. The couch gag this week. The Simpsons sit on the couch and it falls through the floor. Yet another repeat. When we talk to our guest next week, I'm asking him about this because I want to know. I want to get to the bottom of why they repeated couch gags. If it was laziness or they couldn't really think of anything.
Yeah, but at least this is the end of season 2, so maybe we'll get a fresh start with season 3.
Correct.
All right, so the episode opens with Mayor Quimby dedicating a warning system for the nuclear power plant, which...
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I feel like it should have been there well before this. But
we'll learn in a second why it wasn't.
Yes, but to be fair, Homer Simpson was a safety inspector, so you would think the plant will be safe and we wouldn't need a warning system. But
correct.
No, that is not the case.
Correct.
So, in case of nuclear disaster, what should you do? According to the nuclear plant condition sign, there's relax, everything is fine.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
minor radiation leak. Roll up windows.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, radiation can't get through normal glass car windows, right?
I mean, but it's a minor leak. It's a minor leak.
Yes, meltdown.
Very, very minor.
Yep, meltdown. Flee City.
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Chernobyl should have probably had one of these.
Probably.
Core explosion. Repent sins.
Oh my god, that's great.
I mean, if the core exploded and you had the time to repent your sins, good for you. And I like how Homer is laughing in the background at the last thing, because if the core explodes, there won't be any power to run the sign.
And I wrote, I think he's actually right. I didn't really do any research in this, but I'm pretty sure if your power is coming from a nuclear power plant and the nuclear power plant explodes, there isn't going to be any more power unless there's like a separate like electrical grid. But it sounds like the sign is connected to the power plant.
Yeah, so, it makes sense. Or a battery backup or something.
I do like during like when the sign, like when they're rolling through the sign, like the first one, everybody claps. The second one, everybody claps. The third one, a few people clap. The last one, nobody claps.
Well, it's so funny. I'm like, it's a sign to warn you of things. It's not like it's actually happening right now.
Yeah.
Like everyone should be clapping. It's a great sign. It's going to warn you when bad things happen. Not, I don't know. It was kind of a weird clapping situation. But the sign was only made possible after Burns dropped obstructionist legal challenges.
Yeah. So he didn't want the sign because why? I mean, he's a rich old white man who's, as we later find out, he's a Republican.
Yes.
And not to say Democrats don't do obstructionist things, because they do. So, you know, he doesn't want to warn the people of Springfield because he probably doesn't want to get sued. That's probably what his obstructionist challenges were. But any good lawyer could explain to him, well, if you put the sign out and bad things happen, you won't be liable. So I don't know why Burns would try to obstruct the sign going up.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But then I like how he doesn't show up, and Mayor Quimby's like, nobody leaves Diamond Joe Quimby holding the bag.
Which, that was kind of another weird thing.
Well, he's the mayor.
The sign is a good thing.
Well, it is, but Mayor Quimby wanted to introduce the man who kind of made it possible, and so now he's at a loss.
Yeah, and as you just mentioned, Burns was late, and according to Smithers, he's never late, so something wrong must be going on. And lo and behold, we go to Burns's mansion, and Burns fell out of bed because he lost energy. And I love how he's like, with every last ounce of my strength, I will not go see a doctor. And then he immediately passes out because, as we learn, we go to the hospital where Mr. Burns is hooked up. He has lost blood, and he suffers from a condition that translates to a lack of blood, which
is really funny because I was kind of thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, well, I thought Mr. Burns had a bunch of diseases in him that kept him from dying.
Well,
does Bart's blood after this episode basically stabilize his system, and all the diseases that Burns has can't kill him. So Bart's blood is like Mr. Burns' like savior.
Elixir of life.
Yeah.
Yes. They're talking, and Smithers rips off his clothes because he's like, I'll donate my blood. And Dr. Hibbert's like, Well, you can't donate your blood because Burns is O negative, which is not a real blood type. The real blood types are A, B, AB, and O. Burns' blood type is so rare, it does not exist.
Well, he's double O. O exists. He's like double O James Bond. He's like double O blood. It's super rare.
And as we learn, Smithers' blood type is B plus. Do you know what your blood type is?
B plus or B positive?
Because I don't. I mean, I'm probably the same since we're related. I guess I'll have to ask our mom.
I don't know. I have wish no idea. I knew. I probably could have asked when I was donating plasma. I'm guessing they have like your records.
Oh yeah.
So I probably could have asked them. They probably know.
Now you can't.
Now I can't because I don't donate plasma anymore.
So Smithers apologizes to Burns about not being able to donate blood, and Burns is like, "That's okay. The kidney you gave me really hit the spot." So here's the thing. I looked this up because I wasn't sure. You cannot donate a kidney unless your blood type matches, or if you're blood type O, because O is a universal donor.
Yep.
So here's my question. Did Mr. Smithers actually give Mr. Burns a kidney to use in his body, which would have killed him because their blood type does not match? Or did Mr. Smithers just give him a kidney to like put in a jar? Like, is he trying to clone Mr. Smithers? And that also begs the question, how did Mr. Smithers not know that Burns's blood type was O negative?
Yeah.
Because if he donated, and how was it that he was able to donate a kidney in the first place? Like, if he actually donated a kidney, they would have been like, no, you can't donate a kidney because your blood type doesn't match.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, like, what really bugs me is up until, like, this episode, The Simpsons are really good at being realistic and accurate with their, like, portrayals of life.
Yeah.
And the fact that they screwed this up is, like, obviously it's a sight gag, obviously, but at the same time, don't you want your jokes to be accurate?
Yeah, it's weird because had he donated the kidney, he'd been able to donate the blood, and this whole episode would have been null and void.
Exactly. So
maybe he just found a kidney.
Simpsons are, I mean, like, my guess is Burns asked Smithers for a kidney, but he didn't tell him what it was for, and Smithers is so loyal he gave it to him, and Burns just has it in like a jar or something to I don't know, extract DNA, so in case Smithers dies, he could try to clone him. Because he's super rich, he probably has scientists who could probably do it for him.
Yep. All right, so we get back to the power plant, and there's a few signs again. The power plant's got to have some fun signs.
Yep.
We've got to get organized.
No. We got to get organized.
Organized?
Organized.
Who wrote that
I actually
sign?
Looked at it.
Homer must have wrote that sign.
Well, as we'll find out in a second, he probably did.
Yeah, you don't have to be crazy to work here, but it helps.
I mean, that's a lot of jobs.
Yeah. Homer puts up a sign over important procedures that says, "You want it when?" And it was like a bunch of pictures of babies. Like,
I thought it was baby ducks.
Was it baby? I thought it was babies.
Was it babies or baby ducks?
I thought it was babies, like actual human babies.
I don't know.
I think that makes more sense.
You want it when?
You want it when?
Maybe.
I don't. That sign does not make sense to me. And so everyone's gathering around the water cooler. Carl, Lenny, Homer, and Carl says he would donate his blood to Burns, but he doesn't want to. And then I like how
if I had a really awful boss, I wouldn't do it either.
Yeah, but see, Homer's the smart one here. Homer's thinking about
clearly. It's weird.
But Homer backtalks to Carl and Lenny, and Carl reminds him that he's Homer's supervisor, which I think we do that.
I think so.
Yeah, because I think we were kind of on the fence on if Lenny or Carl was his supervisor, but it's obviously Carl. And so
obviously,
so back at home, Lisa is trying to teach Maggie about animals, which is awesome. See. It was like Lisa was basically saying to Marge that we don't want to do the cookie cutter barn animal routine. And it's kind of funny because that's the same thing I do with my kid. We teach him like sea life and dinosaurs and tons of different animals, and even like random ones. Not necessarily.
Steve?
Yeah.
Dinosaurs don't exist.
They do exist. They're just
in your imagination.
No, birds are dinosaurs.
Birds are not dinosaurs?
Yes, birds are dinosaurs. Now birds are dinosaurs. Back in the day they weren't, but then we learned somehow we learned from science that birds are related to dinosaurs. You didn't know that?
So are like crocodiles.
Yeah. So there's dinosaurs around.
But they're not dinosaurs.
They're descendants of dinosaurs.
Yeah, we're descendants of apes.
Yeah. So we're still around. So okay, anyway, we're getting off topic. Okay. So teaching other animals is a good thing. But Lisa's really going on a stretch teaching her like zebus.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess you could go a little bit. I mean, she was even teaching them lemur.
Lemur. Zebu. And for the class out there, what is a zebu?
It's a species or subspecies of domestic cattle found in South Asia. It's good.
Yeah, she really went out of her way to...
So
yeah, they have humps and something else that are different from like cattle here in the States.
Yep. And so Homer comes...
I mean, they're very similar looking, but...
Yep. So Homer comes rushing home because he has a great idea. And he's like, Marge, what's my blood type? And Marge is like, A positive. Homer's like, nuts. Extremely weird blood, and I don't have it. And Lisa's like, you know his blood type? How romantic. And then Marge is like, a mother knows everything about her family. And Lisa's like, oh yeah? What's my shoe size? 4B. Bart's like, how many teeth do I have? 16 permanent. 8 baby. Homer's like, earmuff? XM. Which I was like, what's earmuff? Do you know what
I thought she said XL.
No, XM. Extra medium?
No, I'm pretty sure she said XL.
No, maybe. Then again, I'm reading a script, so... could be wrong.
Oh.
And then Lisa's like...
It's possible the script is typed up wrong.
Yeah, and then Lisa's like, ring? I don't want you wearing rings. It looks cheap. But 3. And then Bart's like, allergies? Butterscotch? And imitation butterscotch. And glow-in-the-dark monster makeup. Impressive.
So the thing with Lisa saying it's romantic that she knows Homer's blood type, clearly she probably knows everybody's blood type in the house. And as we stated before, this is good information to have.
It is.
I don't find that romantic at all. If you don't know your blood type, you should probably find out in case you get hurt or somebody wants to. I mean, it's easy to find out. Just go donate blood or ask your doctor.
Yeah.
But then, I was like, that's not romantic.
Yeah, and then Marge tells everyone that Bart has 00 negative blood, and Homer's like, yes, jackpot.
Yeah, because Burns is rich.
Yep.
So Homer's whole thing, as he told Carl and Lenny, it's like, you don't want to make out like a bandit with your rich boss. I mean, it's a good strategy.
It is. He was thinking.
Yeah. So Bart says he doesn't have to donate blood because he has rights, which that's technically true, but that's not what the Constitution is for. If Bart doesn't want to donate blood, he doesn't have to. That does kind of make him a crappy human being, but he doesn't have to donate blood if his parents tell him he has to.
Yeah.
He can make decisions for himself even though he's a child.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if he's a child, he's a minor, which means his parents could technically force not really, blood,
but then he'll resent them.
Yeah,
you don't want to force a kid to do anything they don't want to do. And for anybody out there who's on the fence about donating blood or even plasma, you should probably do it. It's especially plasma, because a lot of places will pay you for it, but it's also a good thing to do and helps out people. We can never have enough blood donations. So go out, donate blood if you can. If you can't, that's fine. So afterwards, we cut to Homer talking to Bart while he's tucking him in. And Homer asks Bart if he knows the story of Hercules and the lion. And Bart's like, is that a story in the Bible? And Homer's like,
yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. No, it's A, not a story in the Bible. And B, it's not the right story. It's from Aesop's Fables. And it's Androcles and the lion, not Hercules. And the story that Homer tells is actually kind of accurate.
Yeah. Do you want to hear the story?
Comes upon a lion.
Here, I'll tell you the story.
You gonna tell it to us?
I'll tell you the story.
Okay.
Sit down, children. I will tell you a story of Hercules and the lion. Once upon a time, there was a big, mean lion who got a thorn in his paw, and all the village people tried to pull it out, but nobody was strong enough. So they got Hercules, and Hercules used his mighty strength, and bingo! Anyway, the moral is, the lion was so happy, he gave Hercules this big thing of riches. And then Bart's like, how did the lion get riches? Oh, that was so great.
But the actual story is Androcles came upon a lion who was hurting, who had a thorn in his paw, and he took it out, and they became friends, and the lion basically didn't maul this poor man alive because he saved his life. And the moral of the story is, if you help somebody, you will get something back in the world. It's called karma. So do right by others, and others will do right by you, and we'll all live, a happier life if we help each other out.
Yo.
The next day, Homer races Bart to the Bloodmobile that is outside of the power plant that we see previously, because nobody goes because nobody has 00 negative.
Yep.
Blood, and we see Otto working on the Bloodmobile, and it's his side job. When he's not hanging out with his friends at school, which he clearly believes that the school children are his friends, and Bart is. So
yeah, I feel like he kind of is. And then Otto's like, okay, let me just wash up. And then Otto takes a moist towelette out of a bucket of chicken and starts to scrub.
I didn't see that. Oh my god!
While humming Iron Man.
It's
by Black Sabbath.
Well, hiring out that was from Black Sabbath. Because Mr. Smithers comes up, he's like, oh, thank God. Which one can I hug first? And Homer points at Bart, and Smithers hugs Bart, and Bart's like, ew, don't hug me. So then they draw the blood from Bart, and they rush it to the hospital, and they throw it down the hallway.
Yeah. And one of them drops it. There was one point where one of them dropped it on the ground.
Yeah. Don't ever throw a blood bag. I don't have to ask a doctor this. Just don't do it. It's unsanitary. There's a chance you could break the bag because you drop it. Yeah, don't do that. If you're a doctor or a nurse or thinking about doing that, and you have to, handle a blood bag, handle it with care. That's precious cargo.
Well, most blood bags, I think. I mean, I guess it was coming in from outside, so I guess you could probably carry it. But most of the time, it's in a cooler on ice.
It's in a cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, another inaccuracy by The Simpsons in this episode. Obviously, it's a sight gag why they did it that way. They throw it to a guy in an elevator, and he's just standing there, and the elevator door doesn't close, and then he clearly hits, the closed door button. But here's my question. I don't think I've ever been on an elevator where the doors don't close after, a few seconds.
Well, it's a few.
And I've been in.
I use a certain amount of time.
I use elevators, so I don't know if I trust that elevator if I have to hit the closed door button.
Well, okay. Here's the other thing, though. Unless someone on a different floor presses the elevator to get called up, it'll probably be a bit for the elevator door to close. And then, if the door does close automatically, it's not going to go anywhere. You still need to press a floor for the elevator to physically go anywhere.
So maybe he just didn't hit the floor button.
That's correct. That would be my guess, is he forgot to hit what floor he needed to go to.
Yes.
All right, so then we get up to Charles Montgomery Burns' room, who's an American patriot, master of the atom, scourge of the despot. And
he wanted Smithers to write down his epitaph for his gravestone because he thought he was going to die.
And then, as he's saying this, he's kind of getting more, with it, and his, body's getting better, and he jumps up, and the thing his gown isn't covering his butt.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. I wrote thingy.
And this is now the second time that we've seen Burns' butt. And the first time was in Brush with Greatness.
That's right. So here's the thing with this scene. I don't feel like you would feel better instantly getting a blood donation. We've both had surgery. I've never had blood donated. I don't know if you have, like if you needed like a blood transfusion or anything like that. But I've never felt fully recovered even after like an operation where like after I had my hernia surgery, I woke up and I was in severe pain. The only reason I willed myself out of bed, out of the whatever the bed at the hospital bed, was because I really had to go to the bathroom because, you know, I was under for like 4 hours.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, they had to move the story along, so.
Oh, no, you're right. You're right.
So, yep. And then, Mr. Burns goes back to the plant, and obviously he's really happy. He's kind of saying hi to all his employees. And I like how he goes up to Mr. Lenny. He's like, hey, hello, Mr. Brown Shoes.
I like the fact that Lenny is wearing a name tag.
Yes.
Like, just look at that name tag.
But obviously Mr. Burns does not know who his employees are. And then he's like, how about that local sports team?
You know, it's funny. I use this line as a joke, and this is probably where I heard it from.
Yeah, but it is funny how he does say he goes to the Isotopes games, apparently. Like, I feel like he would know, but he's a delusional old senile man, so he probably just doesn't remember. And so then he's in his office with Smithers, and he's like, Smithers, I'm back in the pink. Full of pith and vinegar.
I see. Because the actual line is piss and vinegar.
You probably couldn't say that on TV at the time.
I guess.
Don't know, I guess. But I do like the line back in the pink. He's yellow.
Yeah.
Like humans were pink, so we would be back in the pink, but he's yellow. Wouldn't it be back in the yellow?
I mean, you're right. Yeah. It is full of piss and vinegar, not pith and vinegar. Yeah. So clearly they censored it.
But they made it sound as though he was saying it. So the grown-ups would get it, but everyone else wouldn't.
Hold on. I think we might be wrong here. Hold on. I gotta... Both are correct, actually. Pith and vinegar and piss and vinegar. Pith and vinegar is the polite version.
Yeah, okay. So that makes sense.
All right, so it is correct. All right, I've only heard it as piss and vinegar
because we're all have dirty minds,
clearly. So now we get to Smithers Burns like, oh, who donated the blood to me? And he goes, Smithers like, oh, Bart Simpson. He's like, Burns like, who is that? And Burns doesn't remember suing Bart Simpson or the Simpsons suing him for hitting Bart with his car.
Yeah. So not only does he remember Homer, he doesn't remember Bart either.
So here's the thing. I actually read a theory about why Burns doesn't remember Homer, and we might have talked about this on a previous episode. Is so in the episode where Burns is like, "Oh, I'm gonna make you rue the day you were ever born." I believe that was Brush of Greatness, if I remember correctly. No,
was that episode? The 3 eyes on every fish, 2 cars?
Yeah, it was the political one. So I read a theory that Mr. Burns actually does remember who Homer Simpson is, and this is his way of getting back at him to pretend he doesn't know who he is.
Yeah, but he didn't know who he was in the baseball, the Dancing Homer, and a few other ones. So that doesn't make sense.
So, and Smithers like, oh, he's Homer Simpson's kid, one of your stiffs in Sector 7G. And so Burns is like, I'll send him a card. So he writes him a card, sends it to the Simpsons. Homer, is happy. He sees the card from Mr. Burns. He's like, all right, let's all gather outside so the neighbors can see. Yes. And they go to the backyard.
Yeah.
Would you want to go to the front yard?
Probably, because they have a fence. And who's randomly looking at people's backyards?
I mean, I don't do it, but I can see my neighbor's backyard because they don't have a fence.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see your neighbor's backyard because the way your house sits.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think you'd... I think, like, if you saw your neighbors outside, you probably wouldn't stare at them, though.
No, not in the backyard. Maybe front yard.
So Homer's like, dude, turn the lights on.
Turn them off.
Dim them. Do something. And Lisa turns on the sprinklers. And so he opens it up. He's like, all right, it's flat. Okay, maybe it's just a check. He opens up. All right, it's a card. Maybe something. And he reads the card. He's like, that's it? Just a card? And Marge and the kids just walk back in the house. Bart turns off the sprinkler and leaves Homer outside to wallow in his pity. And so Homer goes back inside and he's really angry and he slams a cupboard. And I didn't really notice this. I didn't think that happened here.
Yeah. Right before he dictates the letter, he's all upset and he's running around the kitchen and all of a sudden he slams a cupboard shut and I'm like, why is there a random cupboard just open in their kitchen?
Well, Marge went back in to the house before Homer, so maybe she got like coffee or something out of a cupboard and she didn't close it.
Maybe. I just thought that was really funny.
So Homer starts dictating a letter to Bart, and this is a reference to the show The Honeymooners and their episode Letter to the Boss, which is clearly a great reference because of the title of that episode. And he goes, "Thank you for the card. It was really great. If you can't tell, I'm being sarcastic."
Yep. And then he's like, Homer's like,
stink.
Yeah, Homer's like, you stink. Could you read that last part back to me? You stink. Good. You're a senile, bucktooth, old mummy with bony girl arms. And you smell like... And then Bart's like, an elephant's butt. Like, an elephant's butt.
Oh my god!
And then so Homer,
the one thing we did miss here is Homer went to the mailbox to mail the letter.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Marge
talks him out of it.
Marge stopped. Yeah, you always do that hand thing, and it always works. To be fair, there's got to be something that Shay does to you that stops you from doing something stupid, or do you just go with it regardless?
Yeah, just go with it. But I do like
Or
Homer.
You actually listen to her?
Maybe. But yeah, I like how though before that Homer's in the kitchen and Marge is still trying to be like, no, we shouldn't do this. And Homer's like, Marge, you're my wife and I love you very much. But you're living in a and then he does it in a fairy voice, a world of make-believe with flowers and bells and leprechauns and magic frogs and funny little hats. And Bart's like, yeah, Mom, we got screwed. And then so Homer goes back home and he's dreaming, about he's choking out Mr. Burns. And I like how it just flashes back and he's choking his pillow. And then they go back into his dream world. And then his pillow turns into dreaming about squeezing syrup on pancakes. And then he wakes up and he's chewing on his pillow.
I have never done that.
No.
That's kind of a precursor to, I think, sleepwalking.
Doing stuff in your sleep.
Yeah. I don't know anybody who sleepwalk, but I'm pretty sure, because I don't think I've ever woken up dreaming about eating something and then waking up eating my pillow, or like dreaming of something and like mimicking in real life.
No, apparently I have. Apparently I have done this only once, and I was driving a car and Shay looked at me and my arms were in the air like I was driving a car. So
she just happened to be awake at that moment and saw you doing it.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's great.
So apparently I do that. So then Homer goes into the kitchen and he's looking for the letter because, he doesn't want to mail it anymore. He was happy with Marge that he let him sleep on it. And we see Bart just whistling down the street and dropping it in the mailbox. Yep. And, Homer's looking everywhere and Marge's like, Homer, it's not in the cornstarch box. He's like, you don't know where it is.
Marge, it just didn't walk up out of here, grow legs and walk out of here. Well, it kind of did.
Yeah.
It kind of did, because Bart walked it out of the house.
Yep. And so Bart walks into the kitchen. He's like, Bart, have you seen the letter? It's like, yes. Where was the last place you remember seeing it? And I do like how Homer talks like really slow at Bart, and Bart just said, well, I was walking down the street and I put the letter in the mailbox. And then this is the first time Homer chokes out Bart.
And then Marge is like, stop that, Homer. You shouldn't be choking him out. You put all this stuff in his head. You should really be choking yourself. And Homer's like, yeah, you're right. And honestly, for a second there, I thought he was going to actually start doing it.
Choking himself?
I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know what made me think he was going to do it, but I thought he was actually going to do it.
Yeah, it was pretty
because the
weird.
way like the animation was, like his hands were like up by his neck. So I thought maybe he was going to start choking himself for a second.
Hey, do you like Cards Against Humanity?
I sure do.
Well, what if you could play Cards Against Humanity Simpsons style?
That would be amazing.
Well, now you can. Check out cardsagainstthesimpsons.com to buy your very own set of Simpsons Against Humanity.
You know, I see a lot of podcasts give out discount codes. Is there a promo code I could use?
There sure is. Use promo code SimpsonsPod. That's SIMPSONSPOD to receive a 10% discount on Cards Against Humanity, the Simpsons way.
Ay caramba, that's a good deal. But for all of our listeners out there, if you want a better deal, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to get a different promo code to save even more.
That is correct. So head over to Facebook, the Simpsons Did It page, Instagram, Simpsons Did It Pod, and Twitter, Simpsons Did It PC to get that code. And as always, everything's coming up Millhouse.
So Homer drags Bart to the mailbox to try to get it out. And so Homer's like trying to stick his arm down and grab it. And he keeps saying ow because he's hurting himself. And Bart's like, give it up, Homer. You're not going to get it. And so he goes, where did he get a hose from?
I don't know. A random fire hose from the side of the street. But I do like how his first is like, it's locked. So he tries kicking it.
Oh, yeah. I have something up my sleeve and he just kicks it. That's a metal mailbox bolted into concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to do anything with that. And so he gets the hose and he's like, well, so we're going to get it wet. Maybe we'll make the ink run dry. And Bart's like, well, what about the other mail that's in there? Oh, all letters are the same. Dear blah, blah.
Dear Mr. Person, I don't know. Yeah. Oh my God.
Sincerely, blah, blah.
This has got to be the most sarcastic Homer episode in the world. I love this Homer. This is my favorite iteration of Homer. Anytime he does this voice is the best.
Well, I did tell you at some point while I was watching the episode, you might have to do more work on the notes because I was just enjoying this episode way too much.
Yeah.
And so Homer gets a hose from somewhere to, try to run the ink. And Homer's like, Bart, give me a signal if you see the mailman. He's like, the mailman's here. Oh, that's great.
That's great. That works.
No, the mailman's actually here. By the way, tampering with mail is a federal offense. Do not do it. You will go to jail. And so he turns around and he sees the mail lady. He's like, well, you're the mail lady. You know my name and have my address. And so I shouldn't run. She's like, yep. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. He runs away. So we go back to Burns's mansion, and he had hired a ghostwriter who was like this hoity-toity kind of guy.
Yeah. So
and I love how he asked Mr. Burns.
So the ghostwriter Burns hires and then fires, writes Hell I Can't, a play on Sammy Davis Jr.'s Yes I Can. His other credits include Up from the Muck and the Unsinkable Saturad Maberdad. I don't know those two books, but
I don't know.
The guy that played for the ghostwriter also wrote those two books.
Yeah. So Burns tries to hire a ghostwriter, and then the ghostwriter asks him about any salacious affairs, and he starts talking about it. He's like, "How dare you? I'll write this book myself. You're fired." And so we cut back. So after all that, we cut back to Homer, and he goes to the post office trying to get his letter back. And this best line. Fantastic.
The best line ever. And I love how in like the future episode where they do the Simpsons clip show, they show this clip again because that's how amazing it is. It's like, hello, I'm Mr. Burns. I believe you have a letter for me. Okay, Mr. Burns. What's your first name? I don't know.
I love how they go back outside and Homer berates Bart. He's like, great idea, Bart.
And fun fact about the post office. So the mural in the post office depicting a gallant mail carrier delivering a parcel of in several feet of snow as a dog snarl and lightning strikes him was inspired by Michelangelo's creation of Adam.
Yeah, I did read it. I didn't know where that mural was. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't realize it was in the post office.
Yep. Homer, I like how Homer's like checking his watch now because he's back at the post office and he's like, or at the power plant, and he's gonna try to steal the letter back because it finally apparently got delivered to Mr. Burns. And I like how he looks at his wrist watch and there's no watch on. He's like, oh, and he switches to his other arm. I don't know if I've ever done that, but
I've never done that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've like faked looked at my wrist when I don't like, I'm not wearing a watch and I'm like, oh, what time is it? And I just look at my wrist because I don't know. That's what I do.
Yeah. And so this scene is so weird because it's once again Mr. Burns' like selective memory. So back when Smithers tells Burns the name of the boy who saved his life, Burns asks who. But then when now Burns later catches Homer rifling through the mail in his office, he asks, "Who are you?"
And I love it. Think of a fake name. Fake name. Homer Simpson.
Don't. Yep. And so Burns starts reading the letter off and he's like, "Oh, this is so nice." And then he's like, "Oh, look, there's more." And he reads the rest of the letter like, "All right, get out of here." And so he has, what was his name? Jimmy? Joey. Grab him by the arm and escort him off the premises.
Like Homer's like, "Hey, can you not twist my arm so hard?" He's like, "I don't tell you how to do your job. You don't tell me how to do mine." And he like literally throws him out of the gate.
Yep. And so I like how Burns is sitting at his window. He's like, I could crush him like an ant. But no, I'm going to slowly blah, blah his life. And it's like, screw it. I'm going to crush him like an ant. And so Smithers comes in and he's like, "As usual, you've been my sober yin to my raging yang." And
no, that's later.
Oh, is that later?
That's
when he
much
calls
later.
off. Oh, that's when he calls off Homer.
Yeah,
that's right.
He asks Smithers
to have him beaten up.
And then Joey comes in and Smithers is like, "Beat him up." No, don't beat him up. No, beat him up, but no kicking.
Yes,
but that's a little bit later. So now we cut back and Burns is rating his book by hand, and he's like, "Thank you, dear reader. I hope you enjoy this as much as I like rating it." And that is when a little bit later, that's when Smithers comes in. I think this might be slightly out of order.
Yeah, okay, but there is one other thing though. So when Mr. Burns is talking to Smithers about having Homer beat up, Burns is fuming over the fact that Homer calls him senile, bucktooth, and bony-armed, liver spotted, and chinless. But Homer never says anything about liver spots or his chin.
Correct.
That
was not in the letter.
Yep.
So we cut to Moe's Tavern, where Homer is drinking his sorrows away because he thinks he's going to get fired. And we get a prank phone call. And Mo answers, and Bart goes, "Is Mike there?"
Last name,
and Mo's
Roch.
Like, "Who?" Roch. "Is my crotch there?" Has
Mike
anybody
seen my crotch?
Seen my crotch? And here's the thing. So you and I don't know if you still listen to Weird Al. I do, because I have him on my playlist. He actually wrote a song in '96. I had written in my notes, I think I thought this scene was in a song of his, and it was called Phony Calls, which is a parody of Chasing Waterfalls.
Yep.
And the song was written, he wrote it and released that album, Bad Hair Day. Not Bad Hair Day, Poodle Hat. No. It was Bad Hair Day. Yeah. Dude, I have like half of his albums. Yeah. And so it was released in '96. So that was 5 years after this episode. But he obviously got permission to put this in his song. Like, that's how like high pop culture The Simpsons are, that this scene was put into a song written by Weird Al Yankovic. Now, granted, it fits the song because it's about making prank phone calls.
Yeah.
And I do like how Mo's like, "I'll carve my name in your back with an ice pick."
Yep. It's like, if I ever catch you, I'll carve my name in your back with an ice pick.
Barney is sitting next to Homer, and he's like, "Oh, you shouldn't try to drink to solve your problems. You should only do it to enhance your social skills." As we saw in the party, the dinner party episode they had.
Yep.
It does not enhance Homer's social skills.
No, not at all.
It diminishes them.
Yes.
So Burns rates his book. Smithers comes in. Burns asks him about the beating.
Yep.
Smithers says, "I didn't go through with it." This is where he's like, "You're my sober yang to my," what was it?
Raging yang.
And so that's when Smithers apologizes, And he's like, I'll go wait outside because it's raining out. He's like, I'll go wait outside for you until you're ready to, until you want to apologize to me. And the rain clears up, and and Burns like, you know what? No, we're gonna reward Bart for giving me blood. And so they're in the mall, and he Burns' line, a fabulous, grabulous, zip, zoop, zabulous present, is similar lines used in Dr. Seuss books.
Yep, but he's like, we get the Simpsons a present. An extravagant present. A mad, unthinkable, utterly impossible present. A fabulous, grabulous, zip, zoop, zabulous present. Because, now he's
we do also crazy. See Maude and the kids in the elevator.
Oh, do we?
Or on the escalator.
I guess I might have missed that.
They were standing in front of Burns. Not that that's really anything. They just happen to be there. It's nice to see background characters, show up. So some of the like, I don't know how big this mall is.
I know every time we go to this mall, we find new stores.
Or do old stores close and new stores like replace them?
Maybe. I mean, I guess to be fair, we don't know.
Malls.
Well, I guess there's only one Springfield mall, but as we know, in most larger cities, there could be technically a couple malls.
Yeah, I'm assuming this is the Springfield Mall. So, stores in the mall. The brushes are coming. It is a paint store.
Yep.
We have the Tam O'Shanter Connection, which I believe is like an Irish store, because you see like a guy in a kilt.
Yeah, I think so.
We see Sweet Home Alabama, the store with things from Alabama. Okay. And actually we go in there, and Smithers plays the banjo. And Burns
like, too corny. Too cornball.
We go to
too cornball.
Too cornball. And then there's a store called Wicked Access, and Burns is like, we're not getting them a pool table. I'm not trying to turn their house into a saloon.
I mean, that would have been a great gift. But
that is a great gift.
But I do like how Mr. Burns did have, he did have a thing to say for each store, though. He's like, he's like, brushes are too practical.
Yeah.
And then in Tam O'Shanter's are too cutesy poo.
Yeah.
And then in the Sweet Home Alabama, he's like, too cornball. But I do like how Smithers is playing the banjo.
And then finally, they stop at Plunger Pete's conversation pieces from around the world. And Burns is like, this is perfect. And Smithers like, but that's $32,000.
Yep.
Honestly, he would have been better off just giving The Simpsons $32,000.
Yeah, but then it would be Mr. Burns giving The Simpsons something completely useless.
Yeah. I do agree. I would have loved the pool table, by the way.
Yeah, that would have been great. I would have gladly taken the pool table. So then the giant head is delivered to The Simpsons, and as the introduction, they're like, here, I'll give you an advanced copy of my book. Will there ever be a rainbow?
I do like the fact that when Burns initially shows up to the house, Homer freaks out and hides behind. But the weird thing is, the back of the couch faces the front door.
Well, no, I think, didn't they move the couch for the thingy?
But before that, the couch was in the center of the room, and Marge mentions that Burns was here, and Homer freaks out and jumps behind the couch.
Oh.
And then Marge is like, but wait, they're bringing in a box. And so that's probably when they moved the couch.
Yeah. And so I was like, and this is for you. And then Bart's like, ooh, a crowbar. And Lisa's like, it's for opening up the crate.
To be fair, for Bart getting a crowbar,
that would be a good present.
I mean, it's Bart.
Yeah. And so they got an Olmec Indian God of War head. And I am not even going to pronounce the name. Topalaka Kettle.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How the hell did they get this head into the house?
I have a better question. How the hell did they get that in their basement?
That's right.
We don't know that yet. Sorry, we don't know that yet. But in the future, this is in their basement.
So here's the thing. When they show the men bringing it out, it only looked like there were 4 or 5 men. But clearly this giant head took, the box when it opened, the back of the box was against the wall. The front of the box is on the floor. But that thing is huge. How did they get it in the house?
Exactly. Maybe
they got an elephant. The elephant never went into the house.
Yep. Yeah. Maybe they
what?
Maybe they shrunk it because hey, it's Aztec, man. You don't know the magical properties of this thing. They
and then my
shrink
other
it to
question
size
is,
and then grow it.
my other question is, you see the now I guess they could have broken down like the box it came in with like a saw or something. So I guess that I just answered my whole question of how they removed the box.
Yeah.
They probably just cut it up into pieces.
Yep. And I like how Maggie walks in the room with a card that says Aztec, and Lisa's like corrects her like, no, Maggie, Olmec. Olmec.
I like, so Homer's like, what does it do? It's whatever it does, it's doing it right now. But what does it do? I do like the fact the final scene that Snowball's sleeping on top of it.
Yep, she's using it as a bed.
Now my question is, would your cat do that?
Probably. My cat likes laying on random things.
So they're sitting on the couch staring at this giant head, and Marge is like, oh, the moral of the story is this. And
no deed goes, what was it?
No good deed
goes unrewarded. She's like, yeah, but we got a reward. Oh,
well, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. But we know. And like, Lisa's like, well, maybe there is no moral to the story. And Homer's like, yeah,
exactly.
It's just a bunch of stuff that happened. That's life. And but it was a memorable few days.
This is great because throughout the first 2 seasons of The Simpsons, almost every episode there was a really good, I guess, moral. It would be a good word to say. Like, a lot of episodes had really good morals and what we should do and life lessons and stuff like that. Obviously, it's all funny and comedic, but this line for the ending of season 2 to just go out on the note of it was just a bunch of stuff that happened, is awesome. Because
and that's how life is. This is a bunch of stuff that happens. Yeah, there are morals here and there. I think, obviously at the beginning is, this episode is, donating blood, be a good person. But then like Homer's like, oh, I want to get rewarded. So he writes a nasty letter and he still gets rewarded for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is really, it's just funny. And it kind of shows almost where the Simpsons are headed because almost from here on out, there's some good lessons to be learned and stuff. But I feel like almost the majority of season 3 to 32, it's literally just stuff that happens to the Simpsons, which is awesome.
And hopefully next week when we have our very special guest to start season 3, we will try to ask him a few questions and get a little bit more insight into the Simpsons. But for this episode, I freaking love this episode. Yeah, you have some inaccuracies like, Smithers not being able to donate blood and them throwing the blood bag around. And obviously that's more for comedic effect. I really wish they had done a little bit more accuracy when it came to Smithers. Now, obviously, he doesn't necessarily say he donated the kidney. Burns just says he gave him a kidney. So there's a little thing there. 5. Everything's coming to Milhouse. The jokes land. You got sarcastic Homer. You got Olmec, the giant head that ends up in the basement somehow, and they got it in the house. And this is so good. It's, as I said when I was doing the notes, I was so distracted by this episode that I missed a few things. Like, It's so good. It's so good. I mean, enjoyed it.
Yeah, hands down. 5, everything's coming up Milhouse all around. I mean, this is almost the episode that really starts just the things you could quote. Just the Homer post office scene alone. I quote that all the time. Like, that is just a great line. Like, it's fantastic.
So, the weird thing is the line that I quote most out of this episode is how's that local sports team doing?
Yeah. I mean, it's just amazing how it went, and it went so fluidly. Like, this episode just went so fluidly. It had one plot, which is awesome. Like, I mean, I don't mind the multiple plots sometimes, but is it just one plot? It just, did its thing. And
the references are fantastic.
Yes. I mean, everything about this episode just screamed hilarious. And even though it just opened up really randomly with the whole like sign of the but it led to the thing. It didn't even take too long to just do it.
So fun fact, do you know, without looking at your book, I don't know if it's in there, or without looking at the internet, do you know why they wrote this episode?
Not off the top of my head, I guess.
So the reason for this episode was because somebody at like The Simpsons or Fox had gotten a blood transplant or transfusion, and they're like, wouldn't it be funny if Mr. Burns needed a blood transfusion?
I mean, it's really funny though, because what episode? I was like, I mean, I listened to a few Simpsons podcasts, but there was one where I think it was Al Jean, if I'm not mistaken, told a story about him doing like hockey, or he was from a hockey town.
Oh,
and that's kind of how the Lisa on Ice thing happened with him growing up. So it seems like in these early seasons, from what I've learned, is a lot of the early stuff was just what happened to us as that's how the writers worked. The writers, it wasn't topical stuff. It was, how did I grow up? What was my childhood like? And then they just kind of incorporated that sort of stuff in The Simpsons. Yeah. So I mean, final thoughts on the whole season. I mean, I definitely can't say it was the best season. It definitely, there were definitely a lot of things about this season that, had its downs and, fluidity and, just random stuff throughout. I mean, we had some great introductions. Like, I mean, The Way We was really fun just to have, our first kind of flashback episode. Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, the very first Itchy and Scratchy based episode. Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of Bart ones, some of them good, like Bart the Daredevil, some of them, not so good, like Bart's Dog Gets an F, definitely wasn't my favorite. We got the introduction of Lionel Hutz. So, I mean... Comic book guy. So there was a lot of great introductions, I guess would be a great way to put it. There was a lot of building up Springfield. Building up what Springfield is. The episodes, maybe not as good, but it was definitely... I mean, it was their sophomore season. And to be fair, I definitely don't think it can be considered a sophomore slump because it was a lot of the stuff was really good. But it was definitely moderate.
So overall, what do you give the season?
I'd say a 3.
3? Don't have a cow.
Don't have a cow, man.
I particularly enjoyed the season. There were a few episodes that didn't hit the spot. They definitely ended on a high note.
Like, yes,
by far, this is probably the best episode of the season.
Yeah, maybe that extra time, maybe the extra time they put into making this episode helped.
But a lot, there's a lot of good jokes, as you said. There's introductions, but for a second season of a cartoon for this caliber, I think they did a phenomenal job. Their references are still, in the 60s and 70s. We don't see like current, like 90s references. I do like the fact, to go back on this episode, the fact that the prank phone call is kind of part of pop culture because of Weird Al. That just shows you the influence that the Simpsons have on people. And I really think it started with season 2. Yeah. Season 1 is good. It wasn't great. Season 2, I think, really raised the bar for what the Simpsons could be and were. And so I'm going to give it a 4. Sprinkles. I don't think they quite hit that 5 yet, but I know they're going to get there probably in season 3, to be honest. We'll have to watch the episodes and go from there. And obviously the first episode for season 3, just to preview a little bit. I mean, they start season 3 on such a high note. Like, I love that episode. I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to talk to our special guest about it. I look forward to the start of season 3. And they start on such a high note. And I hope as we watch season 3, it only gets better from there, which for me is going to be a tall task because I love that first episode. So, as we always do, we are going to end with a character profile, Steve.
Yes, and this week, not a big, I would say, character from the episode like some of them have been, but obviously
I'm surprised. Did we do Burns and Smithers already?
I think we did Burns. I don't know if we did Smithers. But
I'm a little surprised we didn't do Smithers.
Yeah, but this week we're going to do a little, he was in the episode, so it's not too far-fetched. Yes. But we're going to do Dr. Hibbert as our character profile. His relationship to The Simpsons is he's the Simpson family doctor, and he delivered all the Simpsons children, which is kind of weird because I wouldn't necessarily peg him as an OBGYN.
Yes, he is not an OBGYN. Like, that's the weird thing about the doctors in The Simpsons is they kind of practice all... Now, here's the question. Were all the Simpsons children delivered at the hospital?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think so. I mean, at least.
But he's. I mean, I guess he sees Homer and he sees the kids. I guess I'll have to ask our cousin who's a doctor.
I mean, I wouldn't consider. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily even consider Dr. Hibbert as a pediatrician. You know what I mean?
No, like, but he sees kids.
Yeah,
but he's seen the kids.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. Like, I mean, I guess
doctors,
but it could be like a small town. I mean, to be fair, yeah, there's apparently a giant hospital, but I mean, it could be like a small town. But he's not a small town doctor. Like I guess I don't know. Maybe he just specializes in everything.
I mean, that would take years of frickin' medical practice.
Yeah, it's kind of
usually when you go into medical school, you usually pick one thing to study, and that's what you go into. Maybe it's possible. Maybe he was a private practice doctor beforehand, and he delivered some babies, or maybe it was an emergency when Marge delivered the kids, and they needed a doctor, and Hibbert was there.
Maybe just pretty random. But his annoying habits, laughing at inappropriate times, jokingly telling wives that their husbands are dead. Informing patients that their legs will have to come off when he really means their wet bathing suits.
Oh my god.
And
he's not a good doctor.
No. Well, kind of. Better than Dr. Nick.
You're not wrong.
His fashion sense, Cosby sweaters, which, hey, that's kind of where they build him from.
Yep.
The occasional Rocky Horror Picture Show costume.
Yep.
And a haircut that changes with the times.
Interesting.
Well, remember in the Way We Was episode? He had the fro.
Yeah.
So we'll have to keep an eye out his haircut throughout the remainder of the episodes. Maybe any other flashbacks with him. We'll see how his hair changes. So, I just want to close it out, thanking everyone that's listened through season 1, all our newcomers in season 2, all our recent newcomers that have joined us throughout our first 2 seasons. We've been growing. We've gotten a lot more followers, a lot more content. So thank you to everyone who's come on board.
Thank you for everybody who's been here since, we started this.
Day 1, yep.
And keeping up with us. We appreciate the loyalty.
I want to thank all of our guests that were on The Simpsons Did It for season 2. The Simpsons Man, Andy McElfresh, Friends of Fandom, Christine from Friends of Fandom, and Lauren Lodeduce. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show and enhancing all of our episodes, bringing some knowledge that we didn't really know about, and we love talking to Simpsons fans. And we got some great guests lined up for season 3, so make sure you guys come check those episodes out, and, obviously keep checking us out because we're going to keep doing it. We have, 30 more seasons to run through.
we got a lot of years left.
Yes, we do. So, you guys can find us as always on Facebook, The Simpsons Did It Podcast, on Twitter, Simpsons Did It PC, on Instagram, The Simpsons Did It Pod. If you guys have any suggestions or just want to say hi or send us an email, Simpsons Did It, thesimpsonsdiditpod@gmail.com. You can always email us, message us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're always checking all of our messages. So,
and if you have any suggestions, criticisms, any way we can improve the podcast or, bring in, more fan interaction, we always love to hear your ideas. So please, reach out to us if you have any ideas. We'd love to hear them, and we'll try to do our best to implement them. Hopefully in season 3, we'll do another contest as well.
Yeah, we definitely will see what we can do for that, for everyone. Because season 2's contest went so well. We just don't have anything, unfortunately, lined up for season 3 yet, but we're going to look into it. And thanks again. Check us out next week with the start of season 3. So until next time, I'm Steven Sklansky.
I'm Mike Crotch. Robert Skolansky.
And this has been The Simpsons Did It.
Shh.